platforms. So today I'm gonna do my February wrap up, and I'm happy to say that I read 8 books. Wait, c'est 9. I'm pretty happy to say that I read 9 books this month, which is very impressive considering I've been feeling a little meh. There was still a lot going on in February. I guess not like in January. January was insane, but like February, there's still things going on. But I think I just like honed into reading. I think it helps that I did like some reading challenges, and then I had like book club reads. And I don't know, I feel like I was very focused in reading this month, which is why I read 9 books. And yes, considering, sorry, I keep touching my hair. I have to stop. It's just that I just got in and it's super pretty, but yeah, I can't stop touching it. So anyways, and I'm glad to say that I enjoyed, I want to say most of it. There was no real dud this month. There was a lot of okay, like good books that you might enjoy. And there was 2 5-star reads that I absolutely love, would highly recommend to everyone. And yes, so let's get it. I finished actually the last one today. This morning I finished one for my book club that is today. So I'm on time, but let me review them chronologically. So the first one that I finished this month is Ce que je sais de soi by Eric Chacour. And I think, actually, I know this is translated into What I Know About You. And yes, I really, really loved it. I was kind of in the fence with it when I started. I started because there was a book club that I didn't end up going because that's when like everything just crumbled around me basically. But when I started it the very first time, I didn't click in the first chapter, and then I like just put it aside. And then when I picked it up again, I was kind of apprehensive because I was remembering the first time that I picked it up and I was kind of iffy. The writing is something to get used to, I have to say. The narration, that point of view of saying two, it all makes sense at the end. I want to say it all makes sense afterward. There's like a reason about this narrative, and I think it was very well chosen. But yes, if you just going in cold, it's kind of tough to get like wrap your head around it. I want to say that after a few chapters, I really more got into it, and then I just flew by, and it was just amazing, great. I tapped it in quite a few moments, and it was beautiful. So basically the story, you're in the 80s in Carroll, and you're following your main character, not really through childhood, because I feel like yes, you do get some of that at the very beginning, but it's mostly starting when he already is a doctor, has his own practice, following the footsteps of his dad, and then meets someone, and just everything starts from there. And I loved the beginning, the building of that character, so you kind of already had a sense of what kind of person he was and what kind of upbringing he had, the context of it, just enough so that when the event happened, it gives more of a nuance of everything that happens. And some of the side characters too, you do get a little bit of nuance of how they're handling it and how they're reacting and the choices that are being made. And I really liked it. It's a really amazing book. It's so layered. The writing is really beautiful, not flowery in any way, but more like, I don't know, it's descriptive in a way that is just enough, and it's just poetic enough that you get a sense of the person without it getting too much. Like you don't, it's not overwritten, you know? I thought at the beginning that it could have been, and not at all. Like, I feel like most of the chapters really have an intent. There's no wasted time in this book. There's no wasted pages, I want to say even. It's very impressive how compact it is of information and of story. And it's not a plot driven, of course, yes, it is in some parts a plot driven, but it's so much more about the characters and all the reactions and the feelings. And it's just, I don't read a lot of those types of books, and I just really loved it. I highly recommend it. And yes, I'm upset that I didn't get to see his reading, but it is what it is. He's pretty known, like he's getting a lot of awards and a lot of buzz, and I think it's very justified. So definitely, if you're ever curious about it, you should pick it up. It's very, very interesting. So this was a 5-star, my first 5-star of the year. So I'm very, very happy. It happened. I mean, it took all January, but it's okay. It's okay. We got there. We got a 5-star. So I'm very happy about this one. And actually, the one that I read after is also a 5-star. So I felt like I picked really, really well at the beginning of the month. And I'll put it here. It's The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I love Ta-Nehisi Coates. I read Between the World and Me, and I bought The Water Dancer, I think, that I also want to read from him, that I haven't yet. But yes, I knew that I absolutely wanted to read The Message. After reading Between the World and Me, I knew that I loved his nonfiction voice. So I picked it up as an audiobook. He's the one that narrated. I think it's perfect. And I really, really loved it. I think it's more like, it's definitely essays. It doesn't go too deep into things. Maybe sometimes at a fault, because you would wanna, like, he makes it seem so interesting that you would wanna know more. Like, you would want this author to like dig a little deeper, to have his point of view on something in like a more in-depth. But yeah, that's just wanting more, you know. Like, it's not in itself, the book is very good. Like, it is what it wants to do, and I really loved it. And it speaks upon a lot of things, evidently racism, but I think taken in different point of views that were interesting. Of course, there's a whole Palestine, I want to say, dedicated chapter, like essay, that was very interesting. There's a lot of criticism on the media. There's a lot of criticism on like book banning, which I thought was interesting. I've never seen the point of view of an author whose books is being banned. So that was a fun point of view that I've never even thought of, especially because I feel like it's maybe different in Canada, but in the US it's such a big thing, and it's crazy how big of a thing it is, banned books. And so yeah, it was really interesting. I really enjoyed having that point of view. I would recommend it. Honestly, I don't know who I wouldn't recommend it to. I guess if you're like close-minded and a bigot, maybe you wouldn't enjoy it. But I feel like otherwise, anyone and everyone could take something out of this book. I thought it was a great nonfiction. I love those essays. So yeah, that's my other 5-star review of the month. I'm so happy. I started the month super strong, like very satisfied with my picks. And and then it didn't go downhill after. There was no other 5-star, but I read some pretty good books afterwards. Then I read Nightmare Flower by Elizabeth Engstrom, and I finally finished it. This book has been in my videos for months now, because I started reading it in December, I think, beginning December, and I tagged it a lot. It was the creepiest thing. I really enjoyed it. As far as horror, look, I'm a scaredy cat. Everything scares me, so don't take my word for it. You're probably gonna be fine if you don't like horror that much. But it was so creepy, especially that one, Nightmare Flower. That was tough. Oh my god, I could not even. So yeah, I gave it a 4.25 star. It's very specific. Yeah, I got a little bit specific this month with my rating. The main reason is I typically, because there's short stories, a novelette, and a novella in this collection, I really love the short stories way more than the novella and novelettes. And even the short stories, there was one that would like worked a little less memorable, I would say. It's not that they were bad, but definitely I finished it and I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'll remember this story. So it was more that, but the ones that stuck out really stuck out. Like, some of the short stories were crazy. And one of my also disappointments, but not an issue, because the writing is very good, I have to say. That's one of the things that like kept pushing me to read it. The novelette was fine, Fogarty. It was interesting enough, honestly. I think I enjoyed more the novelette than the novel. It was weird. This is basically what it is. It's like horror weird story. So I was cut out. I needed to empty my card. So I don't know if it's the same cadrage, but let's say it is. So as I was saying, the one thing that I enjoyed less about this is the novella part. because it was a lot less weird and horror, and it was a lot more mystery thriller, I think. And I don't mind it. It's just that in this collection, I felt like it didn't make sense. It wasn't cohesive to the rest of the stories. It didn't give the same vibe as the rest of the stories. So that was my disappointed part. It wasn't badly written. It was slightly too long for what the story was, and yeah, I don't know. It wasn't my favorite. So just for that, I knocked it out like a 0.5, because it's still like a half of it. Like it's half of this collection. The short stories were crazy, were so scary. I got so spooked that I ended up not being able to read at night. Like that's how spooked it was. And like it's nighttime. I mean, it used to be nighttime at 4 p.m. So you could imagine like how limited my reading time was with this book. I would recommend it if you're looking for a short, like horror short story collection. Definitely if you go into it knowing that the last one is less so like the first ones, you'll be fine. Like you won't be disappointed for sure. Then the other one that I read is Lone Woman by Victor Laval. And that one I gave 4 stars. I enjoyed it. So again, I was in my whole like horror mode. And the horror part I feel like was, if you like Victor Laval, you will like this. I want to say it's a specific kind of horror. It's not, I mean, I wouldn't even say it's not gruesome, because it is at parts, but it's not like the main point of the horror. I think just the setting in itself is very unsettling, because you are in like the middle of nowhere, and like you're kind of at the mercy of nature. Like for example, the main character is in this house alone in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, yeah, they made it seem like there were still a village next and other houses, so she was less scared. But if I was in the middle of nowhere in that tiny little house, and like man would walk up to my house unprompted, unknown and anything, I'd be scared. Like I don't know, I feel like just that, it's like, yeah, that's super scary actually. So yeah, it was interesting. I liked it. So the setting was interesting. The main character point of view was interesting too. You kind of have this like mystery that unravels, but not like to the end. Like I want to say like middle part of the book. And the ending was a little special, but a Victor Laval special. Like it fits. It feels very fitting. It feels very fitting for him to have that kind of ending. So again, if you like his books, you would definitely like this. See, for example, I read The Changeling, and I feel like, yeah, I get it. But yes, as like a horror fan, if you just like horror, expect a way slower pace and a different kind of horror, more like society, more like, you know, the setting, suspense. There's a lot of suspense in it. So yeah, it's that kind of horror. I liked it enough. I would definitely read another Victor Laval. I really enjoyed it. I've heard people say it's not their favorites, and I get it. To me, it was a solid 4 star though. Like I enjoyed it, and especially the last half, I really flew through it. The next one that I read is Vandal by Chris Bergeron. So I think you'll see that it's a little battered actually. It's like scratched and everything, which is sad because I really like this effect in this book. It's really beautiful. But yes, I brought it with me for weeks. I was bringing it with me. So yes, it suffered by being in my bag. And I had forgotten if or not I had left out a book sleeve cover, book sleeve for like to put paperbacks in, and just realized way after the fact that I did in fact not pack one. So I did have one to like use, but anyways, it's okay. It's not in that bad of a shape. It is a little wet too. Like it lived. It's a paperback that definitely lived, and I enjoyed it. This was a 3.75 star for me. Again, I'm being super specific, and I know. So this is the follow-up to Valid. It was translated. This one I don't think has been translated yet. I think what didn't work for me as much is the narrative. So the story is still very interesting. The points of views are still very interesting. But there was 2 narratives. So the first one you have, it's kind of like an interrogatoire. An examination. Okay. Well, that's not really an examination. interrogation. Is that what it is? It's just that. Okay, so it's just with the accent. So it's an interrogation, and I enjoyed that more because I think it was more of a dynamic conversation, and I enjoyed that about it. And we still got information out of it. We still got, I don't know, it was still like giving something. It wasn't just about the conversation between these two people, but it was also like their beliefs and like how far can they push it. And I think that part was very much a true follow-up to the first one. And then the second part that's in parallel, so we're getting those two kind of narratives. Okay, I don't want to spoil if you haven't read the first one. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but basically the other one is more of like a monologue, if I can say it like that. Like, yeah, there's like a bit of like interjections and like questions and like comments, but I feel like the more you go in the story and the more it's a monologue, and it just wasn't for me. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for me, even if the monologue was very interesting, even if the story was telling was very interesting and the point of view was very interesting, and it kind of wrapped up what happened, you know, like after the first book. So in that sense, for the story was interesting. But just having it just rambled on by one person, like it just, I don't know. I wish it had been more of like a show and not tell, because I feel like this is a classic exaggerated version of telling and not showing, because literally it was all telling, and that's just unfortunate, because I really wanted to love it, like really wanted to love it. And again, the story is good, so it's a good follow-up. The writing is still good, but I don't know, there was just something. Maybe it was too much of that point of view of like the monologuing character, and it kind of made it lose its impact, because as a character, it's a very interesting character. So to have them lose the impact because it's just them rambling on is unfortunate. So yes, maybe I'm being a bit too much of a critic here. I don't know. Again, take all of these reviews as with a grain of salt. Me personally, I thought I would enjoy it a lot more. So in terms of enjoyment, it didn't exactly hit like the first one. And yeah, but 3.75 is not bad. It's just that it wasn't my favorite, and I thought I would enjoy it as much as the first one, and I didn't, unfortunately. But regardless, I'll still read whatever Chris Bergeron comes out with. Definitely an author I want to keep my eye out for. So yes. Then we have The Unworthy by Agustina Basterica. I won't talk too much about it because I'm doing a whole reading vlog that actually you'll hear about the books here, but I've attempted to read 2025 releases. So this comes out in March. So this to me was a 4-star. I really enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it as much as Tender is a Flesh. It's that kind of creepy. If you like Tender is a Flesh, you would enjoy this. It's very graphic. It's very harsh at moments. I've heard some critiques, so my thoughts on it more extensively will be in that reading vlog if you want. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet here. I enjoyed it. I, of course, have some critiques. It's not a 5-star, but some of the things it did and the vibe, and I will say for the whole setting and the story, it was interesting. So to me, it's a very solid 4-star. It's very cult-like. If you like books about cult, this is very cult-like. So you'll definitely enjoy that part. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Solid 4-star. Again, if you want like more thorough review, because I go deep into this book in my reading vlog, you should definitely check it out. So then I read Watermoon by Samantha, what was her name? Sorry. Samantha Soto Yambao. That again was for my reading vlog of reading a 2025 release. So that one came out this year. I think it came out in mid-January. And that's a 3.75 for me. It was entertaining, I will say. I don't think it'll stick with me though. And one of the things, again, I got way more thoroughly in it in my reading vlog. But basically it's this fantasy that if you like Before the Coffee Gets Cold, you would enjoy this, definitely. I personally thought it was more fun than Before the Coffee Gets Cold in the way it explores this trope. I think I when it cold, I knew nothing about this book. I should have, I didn't think the romance component would be such a big part, which I actually enjoy when there's a mix of romance and another genre. So fantasy and romance, it's something that I would have enjoyed. I think it was just not the kind of romance that I enjoyed, and it's very insta-lovey and it's very cliche, and also I think the fact that what didn't help is that I never really got attached to the characters. I really wanted to though. I would hear her, like the conversation they would have, and I'm like, I cannot relate. It feels like she's a robot, and then I feel like in some parts that's what it wants, for her to be this indifferent being because she is from this magical world. But then I don't know, there was just nothing endearing about her. Like, even like, my god, I've read books about robot point of views that I enjoyed and that I could like not relate to, but like sympathize with, like empathize with, and just, yeah, I don't know, I feel like it wasn't enough to make me care. And because I didn't care, well, I feel like the story was very low stake for me, and then the romance was very low stake for me, and it's just, no, it didn't do it for me. Now it's a 3.25, so I still enjoyed it enough that I finished it. I thought the world building was very interesting. I would definitely see this as like an anime or something. It was just so magical and fantastical, and it's just animation anyway. They should animate this like world, because it was very interesting. I really like it. So yeah, that part was great. The writing was okay, but yes, I don't know, I think it got me at the beginning and then kind of felt like a letdown the more we went in the story. And the more we went in the story, the less I cared. So I was like, I don't know, you might still pick it up. It's not a bad book, so I would understand someone liking it, and I would understand someone enjoying the story and the romance and the characters. It's just, it wasn't for me. Then I read Goddess of Filth by V. Castro, and that was an interesting novel, I have to say. I read it because it was this book club that I only participated in, like the book discussion, like online, because they were meeting in person, but then it's like in the US or anything, whatever. They're super sweet and we got to like chit chat about it. And it's an interesting novella. I saw some reviews and I understand, and my thoughts on it before the reviews was a 3.75. So an interesting novella, but see, I feel like it started too quickly. I feel like there was no moment to establish this group of friends and the context of it, which I guess the context, it wasn't so bad because we did get it through the events that followed. I mean, I'll say it, the friend was possessed, like that's page 2. Honestly, it's page 1 or 2 of the book is the friend gets possessed or something like that, but you know, basically it's that. So I thought it was too quick, just because I think we had time to kind of discover the context and everything, and like understand a little bit why this story in this context with this group of girls, like afterwards. But then I think it wasn't like established enough, like the friendship of it, the you know, like what was their dynamic, how they were, and like we did get bits and pieces here, but I feel like because the story wants to be so, you know, female empowerment and, you know, teenagers discovering their sexuality instead of being repressed, instead of it being seen as something evil. Female friendship should play a big part in it, and it kind of did with the best friend, but like, yeah, I feel like I wish it had been, there was like a couple of pages of establishing more the context, and then, you know, and then you go forth. And like the time jumps were weird, like the timeline of the story was a little weird for me. Like maybe I'm overthinking this, but honestly the timeline of the whole thing was very weird for me. And it's very, not super explicit, I wouldn't say, but it has its moments that are a bit graphic. And then I feel like it touches upon justice a little bit, and yeah, there was a lot of good ideas. I just don't think a novella did it justice. I couldn't enjoy the ending and the whole book completely because it was too far-fetched at moments, like too far-fetched, and somehow a little convenient here and there. It's not a bad book. I don't think I would recommend it as a first V. Castro. I personally started with the Hunting of Alejandra, which I really enjoyed. Don't read it if you're pregnant. It's too much. But yes, I would start with another one of hers, but not Goddess of Filth. Goddess of Filth I feel like is like interesting backlist book of hers to read, but not a top favorite. At least not for me. Then I finished the audiobook I Hope This Finds You Well by Natalie Sue, and this to me was a 3.5 star. I enjoyed it enough. It was so cringe. Basically, it's in an office setting, so you really have all the potential cringy moments you could see in an office because the main character is very cringy, but like, to be fair to her, like, who isn't? And also I feel like because she is who she is, it's very frustrating. As someone who masks, I want to say at almost perfection, I have learned so much of social clues and social environments and social events that I can write a textbook about it. Like, I know exactly, you tell me a situation and I'm like, this is the appropriate response that someone would expect. Or this is the response you should if you want this reaction. Like this, I just textbook, I know it. So for me to see her blunder and like just make all these mistakes in a workplace, I was like, like, oh my God, how could you? How can you not know? Like, how can you not know what to do and what not to do? And I know it's a very me thing. I think way more people would relate to that character. I couldn't, and I don't care. Like, to me, that wasn't the point. Like, I lived through her and I was like, I feel bad for you. I feel so bad for you. It was terrible. And Office, yeah, in Office, it's all about politics and what you say and what you don't. And it's like, oh, girl, you gotta learn. Sorry, I'm getting too much in it, but 3.5 because I enjoyed it enough. It was super easy to read. I actually listened to it on audiobook. Super easy to listen to. Very entertaining in that sense. There's a lot of layers. I want to say it's like the ending is way too soapy and like cutesy and like cucu, comment on dit ça? Yeah, I don't know. The ending was just not satisfying for me, and it was very much like an after school special kind of ending. So it is what it is, whatever. It's fine. Like I didn't want her to have a bad ending either, you know what I mean? So I don't mind that it's a very good cutesy ending, very, like, I could see it coming a mile away. That's what I mean. So anyway, fine story. I think what it has going for it is the Office cringiness and moments, because it's completely relatable. If you've ever worked in an office, it's like, yep, I get it, I understand. I enjoyed it for what it is. I don't know that it's gonna stick out to me, honestly. Now, the last book that I read, and I haven't rated it yet, I'm not sure. I kind of want to wait after our book discussion at the book club. I tried tabbing a few moments that kind of stuck out to me. This is a poetry collection by Marcela Huerta. It's called Tropico. And if you've seen any review of me reviewing poetry, I will say, and I will die on this hill, poetry, everything is so subjective, but poetry for me is the hardest genre for me to enjoy. Because there's just some poetry styles that just don't work for me. I wish I got poetry. I really do. I wish I got poetry. But anyways, so in this case, I want to say half of it was like that, unfortunately. Half of it I was like, yeah, but I don't get it. And then the other half I was like, oh, yes, I get it. And I enjoy it, and I love the way you phrased it, and there's just something that didn't do it for me, and I don't know if it's the translation, like no offense to the translator at all, because some of the poems really hit me. So maybe it is the author, you know, maybe it is her poetry style that sometimes just doesn't work for me, because I'm that kind of stupid. Some poetry types are just not for me, and it just doesn't hit my head. I know some of them do. So like in this case, I want to say at least half worked for me, at least half didn't. So, but I want to discuss it with the book club because I feel like it would bring me more food for thought, and maybe it's just like went over my head. I felt like I thought I knew what it was, the line was, and then I got confused with poems because she plays a lot with like you and her and me, and it's like it took me a moment to get like the first poem. She says like, I see you with your daughter, and I'm like, it's her, she's the daughter. And it just, because I don't know these people, this is the first poem, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like I assumed it was her father, but then I was like, does he have another kid? I don't know this guy. Like, does he have another family? Are you talking about another sister? Are you talking, I don't know these people. So while keep reading it, I was like, oh, she does that. She does that. She like puts herself in like this perspective, and I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what you're doing. Sometimes I really feel that I'm too dumb for poetry. I don't know, to me it's just, it wouldn't be a 5. It's definitely not a 5-star. It could be a 4, or it could be a 3. It wasn't awful. It wouldn't be a 2, for example, but we're in the middle zone. Like I'm trying, and because this month I'm very specific with like my 0.25, 0.75, I'm curious to see where it's gonna land after discussing it more, because I think that's also nice with poetry when you discuss it with other people. You know, it gets more of a different point of view and everything, so I'm curious about that one. So yes, sorry, that was a very long wrap up. Yes, I had a lot to say. I mean, I did read 9 books, so it makes sense, and I didn't want to do like rapid fire reviews either, but those were my very general quick thoughts on each of them. I hope you enjoyed this video. I am trying to keep up with at least 1 video a week, but who can say? But if you enjoyed it, you can do a little like. Please tell me if you've read any of these. I would love to like chit chat about them. I actually ended up chit chatting about The Unworthy on Instagram with someone I follow that I followed for a moment, so it was super fun to like chit chat with her. And so yes, I love talking about books, so let me know if there's any of those that you read that you want to discuss. Let me know in the comments. Let me know also what's your favorite read of the month. What did you read? What did you enjoy? Let's share the love. And you can subscribe if you want. I'm trying really hard to do like at least a video a week, but again, like I said, who knows, you know, fingers crossed. So yes, I'll see you in another video, and in the meanwhile, happy reading. Bye. No estoy pendiente a lo que tú estás haciendo, que yo no la estoy rompiendo, yeah. Tú mismo te